Welcome back, listeners, to another exciting episode of the BSB Podcast. Today we're bringing you yet another episode from deep in our vault. However, before we travel to fair Verona to explore Broadway's Romeo and Juliet, like, follow, and subscribe to us on all social media platforms at bsb.insider. And spoiler warning, if you haven't seen the Broadway production of Romeo and Juliet and don't want any spoilers, stop this video now. Thanks again for joining us, and enjoy the show.
If you have not seen Romeo and Juliet, if you are waiting for a pro shot, if you are waiting to read it in 9th grade, I was going to say algebra, but that's the wrong class, 9th grade English, then you might want to just keep scrolling on by. But if not, welcome to the discussion. RJ, we just got through part 1, which, technical difficulties aside, went pretty smoothly. We talked more than we thought we were going to about Romeo and Juliet. There were some soapboxes that we stood on talking about curriculum building and stuff, so we had a great time.
Yeah, it was fun.
And of course, we talked about the story of Romeo and Juliet. So for those who maybe missed part 1, the Romeo and Juliet that starred Kit Connor and Rachel Zegler was a modern ? Retelling of Romeo and Juliet with everything in Old English, including the question marks in our head, because it felt like it was slightly disjointed with the story, as some things were updated. It was really hard to follow some of the characters, but something appealed to the people that brought them in. And I think that is obviously what theater's supposed to do, right? Bring people in.
It's helpful.
So maybe the story was Old English, Shakespeare, but it did appeal to somebody. So I guess I'm going to start with you, RJ. I kind of touched on it last time, but who was this show appealing to? Who was this aimed for?
The youngins. Whoever likes giant teddy bears.
Why was that teddy bear? There was 2 of them. Yeah. Why were there so many teddy bears, and why were they so big?
That's whoever knows the answer to that question. That's exactly who this show is for. If you know the answer to and or like very life-size teddy bears, this show is for you.
I think we need to take a step back about the teddy bears, because I think we need to go back to the lobby that we were in. When we walk into the show, you go down the escalator, and it is like instantaneously a rave. Is that a good way to put it? But there was just teddy bears everywhere. Like, were you getting rave vibes from that lobby?
Yeah, it was like underground club.
Yes.
But teddy bears. Instead of, there was a bar, but teddy bears.
Yeah, there was like teddy bears. There was teddy bears everywhere. Underground club is a really great way to put it, because it's right next door to the Gershwin. So we're right next to Wicked, but we're like, you go down an escalator and you're in a basement. And then the lobby opens up and the theater's down lower. Like, you're just like in this, like, it feels like what people probably described as a rave back in the day. Like, that's the kind of club you went to when you were about to party your heart out. And there was lots of pink, large teddy bears. Like, there was one you could even take your picture with on a couch. I remember as I was going to the bathroom, there was that large teddy bear. And there was a thing that it seemed like the youngins who were there knew about. And I did not know about it.
Yeah, we missed the teddy bear memo.
I would have brought mine. Then we could have just partied for real.
Yeah, they were all taking photos. I don't know, missed it.
What do you think that, like? Not cutting down anybody's vision of the show. Somebody had a vision for the show. What do you feel like the teddy bears had to say about Romeo and Juliet that, like, I clearly missed?
Truly no idea. What? I'm not. Because really, they didn't play into the show itself at all. There's one part where he's like laying against it and leaning on it, and it gets like tossed, but it wasn't like anything pivotal.
Yeah, I think that's a really good place to start. When you walk into the theater, it's a round. That's the technical term, correct?
In a round.
It's a theater in the round.
Yes.
In round. So the theater's down in the center. We're all around the sides of it. And all there is a giant pink teddy bear sitting at one end in the round, or the theater. And then there's a buggy, like a shopping buggy, a shopping cart, full of bears tipped over in the middle of the stage. That's it. That's all we get when you walk in there. And the bears in the shopping cart are of varying sizes, and I was so confused. I was just like, I don't know where this is going. You know what I mean? Like, teddy bears have nothing to do with Romeo and Juliet. Again, it goes with that modern retelling, but like I feel like there was just like a piece, that connection was missing for me.
Yeah, even from other things that I've read, like it literally was just to be modern, I think. Which I guess teddy bears, but like teddy bears aren't particularly. I mean, for that era, maybe they were modern, but teddy bears have been around for a minute.
That's Theodore Roosevelt, right? Like, isn't he the reason why it's called the teddy bear?
It literally, when I look it up, it literally just says the Gen Z inspired take uses teddy bears as a quirky and modern element to add to the aesthetic of the show.
Okay. So if we're looking at the modern elements, I think it's interesting because as we stated before, as we stated in part 1, it is Old English Shakespeare. It is Shakespeare at its roundest. It is, they're speaking in ways that like I've never heard. It sounds kind of like parcel tongue. But they're dressed in like, sometimes it looked like they were dressed in like, tank tops and like army pants, and Rachel Zegler's in like small dresses, but then like you have the teddy bears, but you're speaking like, there was like this, like, again, that disconnect of like what you're seeing and what you're hearing, which I really noticed about this show.
Yeah, and maybe that was the draw, is to almost completely make your senses be overloaded, in the sense that you're in a space, like if this show is geared towards Gen Z, which seemingly it is, then you're surrounded by all these things that are familiar. Like I almost, and granted, I am not like a chic person. I don't go out. I especially don't go out to like high class modern like nightclubs or anything like that. But I'm just thinking like it is the aesthetic, I would imagine, of kind of like a bougie, plush, very high scale, intimate nightclub wherever. I don't know about the teddy bears, but maybe like replace that with pillows, and it's the same thing.
Sure.
And so like that level of comfort mixed with the total uncomfort of language that you have to really pay attention to.
Right. And I think that again kind of speaks to the fact of you cannot passively watch the show. You have to be like an active participant in everything that's going on, of the senses, of the take, of the language. And so you do have to engage with it differently. I don't think like you can just go in and be like, this is my popcorn show, like this isn't like not that you don't engage with Anne Juliet, that's what I'm saying, but like you have to engage differently. Like you actually have to stop and think. You have to stop and participate. You have to stop and comprehend, and you just can't join into the show and be a part of the show without having to like constantly analyze it. Like there's like a level of critiquing and analyzing that you have to almost be doing the entire time that you're watching Romeo and Juliet on stage here. At least it kind of felt that way.
Yeah, I mean, if you weren't paying attention for like a minute, you would be lost.
For sure. And plus, I think it also makes you question, like, when was this taking place? Like, was this in Verona in the, 1300s, 1500s, whenever it takes place? Like, or is it the underground New York today? Like, I think that there's, I get what they're aiming for, but I don't get what they're aiming for. Again, am I old? Is that what this is coming down to?
I am. It's but seemingly it drew in audiences of all ages. Like when I looked across the room, like, yeah, there were young people, but I also saw, middle-aged or even elderly folks. So I think that draws on the fact that, once again, we all at some point read Romeo and Juliet. And so maybe if you're super into the story itself is for you. And just like us, like we walked in thinking modern retelling, they could have walked in just thinking retelling, without modern. So because I think the publicity for the show was pretty vague overall. Like if you weren't paying attention, you could easily walk into that show and just think you're going to Romeo and Juliet, probably until you reach the lobby and you're like we were, like, what's with the teddy bears and why is there like EDM music playing and like neon lights happening?
But let me ask you about those. So I think another thing of the draw, when they were originally writing, like kind of like advertising this, we got Rachel Zegler, we got Kit Connor, and the other name was Jack Antonoff. And they had kind of teased original music being written for this and stuff like that. So I was thinking musical. I was thinking like this is a musical. They're musically adapting Romeo and Juliet. And we got, 2 songs? There was a DJ. What did the music do for you for this show? I mean, Master of the House, absolutely beautiful because of Rachel Zegler singing it. Like, she slayed that song. Fantastic. But again, I don't know what it did for the show.
Yeah, I would say absolutely nothing. I enjoyed it. I thought it was very well done for exactly what it was, but as we know, based on the fact that they have literally taken it out when she's not singing it, it does absolutely nothing for the show itself. I think it is just it was a publicity alteration.
Sure.
To also play on her strengths, right? We know she's an incredible vocalist, so why wouldn't
100%.
you add in there opportunities for her to sing?
100%. I mean, like, that is definitely one of the draws, is that Rachel Zegler is a professional. She's a professional singer. Like, no doubts about that. It's beautiful. But I forgot that they took that out when she's not in there, because there was the huge scandal where they had people on stage who didn't know the parts because Rachel Zegler and Kit Connor were out, and they took out that song. And I forgot that they took out that song because they took out one song and there's only 2 of them. Like, that does speak to the fact that it doesn't add anything essential to the story. It's just added fluff to draw people in.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm sure there's arguments on both sides, but for me, the story is still the same, right? Like, we still know what exactly is happening. It's just, insert song here.
Yep. So, growing up, obviously, we probably thought of Romeo and Juliet as a romance, as most people do. But what did you take away with, like, the tone from this production of it?
I mean, there's a handful of fight-ish scenes. Even if it wasn't physical fighting, a lot of, like, kind of spats.
Yeah.
Which I do remember happening. I just don't remember it happening as much. So maybe it was the fact that it was physically in front of me was more of a remembrance of, oh yeah, like these 2 families hated each other. And this is what happened. Rather than everything else being around Romeo and Juliet. And the fact that it doesn't start that way. Like, I totally forgot about him being interested in others, and the whole purpose of going to the party not being, like the whole initial part of the plot. I was like, oh yeah, it is political. It is kind of, it's fighty.
Sure. I think I was really drawn this time around to the political nature specifically of Juliet and her parents, which for some reason when I engaged with this the first time around, or like when I was in 9th grade, it never struck me about like how almost abusive her parents are. And I think that it really started to dawn on me when we saw Anne Juliet, of being like, oh, her parents are actually awful. And I liked that they did play this up with her father kind of being that drunk, kind of being more of the, you're gonna ruin everything for us kind of thing, like putting a lot of pressure on her into having to play into the political politics of what's happening in Verona. And so again, I don't know. Again, I haven't read this in years, so I don't know if I missed that just because I was so young. If that's not in there quite so much, but there was more of that, like more of the emphasis on the politics of happening in the Verona and how the families themselves play into it and how they impact these children, because they're basically children falling in love. So I do think that was an interesting kind of addition or focus that I never really noticed of before.
Yeah. Like, I mean, the whole basically, you know, arranged marriages, and basically we're telling you how to live your life. Every part of your, like, we have so many expectations for you. You really don't have a life of your own, on one side of it, which is also very interesting when you think about it. It tracks, though, unfortunately. Like, the girl, like, the girl's being told, here's every step that you're going to make. Meanwhile, Romeo and his bros are just like out on the streets doing whatever the hell they want to do.
100%. Just being the absolute menace to society that they are.
Pretty much starting fights.
So I do want to speak about the staging, because there was some things about the staging that I thought was pretty cool. And I'm going to start somewhere really simple, I guess, because it's maybe the kind of the least impressiveness out of all the things that they could have done. But I don't know why I loved the bed. So Juliet has a bed that comes down from the ceiling. And in fact, at one point she's standing on it singing Master of the House. But it's like just suspended by cables. And like the fact that they used it to like have him pull himself up. And it was like so simple, so not meant to be impressive, but I thought it was one of the coolest aspects of the show, because they were using the catwalks up top to get to it, and they were doing some of the show up there, but it was just like this beautiful, like, she's hanging and like she's the center of attention, and I just thought that was such like a cool aesthetic of the show. What are your thoughts on that bed?
Yeah, well, initially when it came down, I was curious because I had obviously seen, you know, a few shots of the fact that the bed did come from the ceiling, but the fact that they use cables and not any type of like reinforced, like I was anticipating it being like a lift, like a reverse lift.
Yes.
Where it was motorized, which of course it was motorized, but I mean like with steel or metal or something.
Yes.
Obviously that takes up more of a viewpoint though, which is I think why they used cable, because it could be thin, and so you're, with it being an around, you're blocking less people's view. With that thinner cable, but
for sure,
then obviously there's a weight limit, and they both are on it at one point or another. Obviously the cable is thick enough that it's fine, but the ability for it to swing and shake is way more,
freaks me out.
Yeah, I was like, wow, that's bold. Like and it's a choice. And obviously it's limited movement once they're on there and it's in the air, but it was interesting. The whole scape too of being in the catwalks and literally doing lines and scenes from up there that I had never experienced. That was entirely new. And the purpose also though was lost on me. Like I wasn't, I understand that you only have a very, very small stage. I mean, that stage was probably, I'm not even sure. It was not big by any means. And it was a literal circle. So I understand wanting to find space to have other scenes so that you feel like you're in a different place. Mm-hmm. But depending on where you're sitting in the audience, like you completely lose whatever is going on. And so that entire scene, I have no idea. I have no idea what was said. I have no idea what was happening.
I mean, there was definitely a scene, like they were like right above us, and I did not know where they were talking, and I could not figure out. I was like, what are you doing up there? Why are you doing it up there? And I was not paying attention to anything they were saying in that moment.
Yeah, like in theory, it's cool. I think if the rafters had just been a little bit lower, but they were so tight to the ceiling, and there was so much other. Obviously, there's ductwork and other stairs and catwalks that the only part of them that I could see was like a leg or an arm.
Yep.
And that's because they were intentionally dangling it off of there. So
I mean, and speaking of, like you said, them using their space, like they are using the entire, like they're running down the stairs that we walk down. They're running around the stage that we have to walk to get out in and out of this theater. I think the other impressive thing about it was what the field of flowers that open from was really cool. Like the center of the floor for people who weren't there, it opens up and there's a whole bunch of flowers. I'd also argue I didn't understand the point of that. It felt like I was trying to give it a whimsical thing, but it felt more like, you know, like when you watch a movie and you see people from like Woodstock smoking and like that was kind of what I was going for, but again, it was lost on me. Like I was like, I get what you're doing, but what is this doing? Like, why are we doing this? But it was kind of cool to see come out. And I was like, what is going on? That's kind of cool. But then that was it. Like, it was kind of like a really cool, impressive looking thing. And then I was done with it.
Yeah. Like after that very one specific scene, I was surprised that it didn't, I mean, it eventually did close up again, but I thought it would have been closed up a lot sooner.
Mm-hmm.
Because once again, we're losing time and space. I feel like we weren't sure where we were because, you know, if one scene happens with the flowers and then another scene happens with the flowers, but it's not the same place, like where are we?
100%. How would you rate this production of Romeo and Juliet?
Oh boy.
I'm gonna be harsh. I'm gonna give it probably a D.
Yeah, I'm probably right there with you. It's not for me.
Yes. I'm not sure who it's for. I wouldn't go see this again. Like, I will be honest with it. If it was not for Kit Connor, I probably would not have seen it to begin with, but I would not go see this again. To me, there's not a lot of rewatchability unless you really love Romeo and Juliet, and you have to really love Romeo and Juliet.
Agreed. Yeah. If you're a Shakespeare nerd, this is probably your thing, which you would have already known.
And you would have seen it, probably. Or if it tours in a city near you, I hope that they have a really big star to draw you into it, because boy, actually, I don't think they could tour the show. I'm gonna say that I don't think this is a show that could tour. I don't think it could.
It has to be in black box. It couldn't do a national tour.
Yeah.
Because you need a theater in the round. Like, it's built that way. You'd have to completely restage it. And for the reasons that we just spoke about, like the catwalk scenes, if you don't have a catwalk, which a lot of places do not, you have to restage that entire sequence. So, yeah, I can't imagine that this production would go on tour.
So unfortunately, you're probably not going to see this anytime soon, unless your local black box theater decides to put it on, and then by all means, enjoy. So we are running out of time, so thank you for joining us on our part 2 discussion of Romeo and Juliet. I almost said Titanic, because that's what came to mind. Thank you so much for joining us here in our box seats. Until next curtain call, take care.